Hey, stranger.
Hello. Hey, Norm. How are you today?
Good. Were you
Wonderful.
late again?
No, you're. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to the Ecom Power, the Walmart Marketplace podcast. And today we are going to discuss on winning the buy box on Walmart. And we have a couple of with amazing guests, and we have a couple of topics. So, we're going to talk about what is e-commerce repricing, the strategies used in e-commerce repricing, and how to determine the optimal price for a product.
Look it. There we go. Got
Yeah.
through the first part. And
Yeah.
by the way, I just see that Azil mentioned, yeah, when we'll be starting late. Look, if we're about a minute late or so, or two, maybe three, don't worry about it. There are going to be replays, but anyways, we always get some tech issues once in a while. It's live, so just don't worry about it. We will come on live one of these days. Maybe we'll both be in the fetal position, but we'll be live. Um, okay, well, why don't we just go over to the sponsor, and then I'll come right back and introduce the guest. WallySmarter.com is a cutting edge software tool designed to help online sellers make more money on Walmart.com. Featuring advanced keyword and product research tools, Wally Smarter identifies high demand, low competition niches for you to capitalize on. With more accurate Walmart sales estimates provided by its easy to use Chrome extension, Wally Smarter takes all the guesswork out of selling on Walmart. Be empowered to make more informed decisions and grow your business like never before. Try Wally Smarter today with no credit card required. Did I say no credit card required? Anyways, use your coupon code POWER30 and get 30% off Wally Smarter today for life. All right, we are back, and today, as mentioned, we are going to be talking about winning the buy box. We're going to be talking about what is e-com repricing, the strategies used, and how to determine the optimal pricing. So, I would like to introduce our guest, and he is a seasoned entrepreneur, a leader, a tech leader with more than a decade of experience in e-com, and the founder of Flash Repricer. He has become a go to expert for business seeking to optimize their pricing strategies. And his focus is e commerce price management. And his focus on e commerce price management has helped thousands of third party sellers maximize profits and streamline their operation. Today, first time guest, we're going to be welcoming Jordan Schanzer. And welcome, Schanzer. Welcome, Jordan.
Hey, Norm. Thanks. Thanks for the intro. That was great. And you didn't even do that badly with the last name there. We rehearsed that a bit on the Michal side, but you didn't get a chance to do that. So great
Yeah,
work.
even for me, it was difficult. I had to practice. Schanzer.
Thanks for
Did I say
having me
it
here,
right?
guys. Yeah, that's
Schanzer?
good. Yeah,
Okay,
Schanzer
yeah,
will
I
play.
practiced.
Uh,
Nice.
okay, well, why don't we start? And let's see, what's a question I can ask you? How about explaining what the difference with e-commerce pricing is and how it works in not tech terms, just simple terms.
Yeah, so e-commerce repricing, specifically as we talk to third-party marketplace repricing, in simple terms, basically, as a consumer, customers would visit Walmart.com or Amazon.com or any other marketplace on the web. And what they may or may not know is that these prices are changing dynamically in real time and super quickly, based off of competition, based off of demand, and any other strategies that either the sellers are implementing or they're having softwares implement on their behalf. And so the idea of repricing is basically that us as a software, we help sellers change their prices based off of different market conditions, based off of other competition's pricing in real time between a minimum and maximum threshold that they'll set within our software. that's like the basic ground level idea, is that we help people optimize their pricing and change their pricing in real time.
Got it.
Jordan, what inspired you to specialize in e-commerce price optimization, and how did you get started with this field?
Yeah, so as Norm mentioned before, I've been in the e-commerce space for between 10 and let's say 15 years now, not to date myself. And basically, my initial forte into it was not as a seller. It was working in the repricing space. Fun fact, I actually spoke on the first panel, repricing panel, at the first Prosper show that ever existed back in the day, and was alongside some older players in the space, Feedvisor, Excelco when they first started out, and I was there with a company that I was the head of business development for, by the name of Inform.co now, used to be App Eagle. And so, yeah, I started there as an early employee, and basically spent a whole bunch of years, let's call it 7 or so years, learning how to help sellers optimize their pricing in real time across thousands of different sellers, and come up with different strategies and figure out what can help you obtain the buy box with regards to price, fulfillment method, reviews, and other factors. And so that's where my initial introduction into e-commerce and e-commerce pricing had come from. And then eventually what happened was I got so intrigued by all these people selling on these third-party marketplaces and, making all this money. And I thought, why couldn't I do that as well? I already know how to price my products well, which is like one of the main factors that come into play with regards to selling more and selling high, and doing it faster than everybody else. Now I just need to find some products. And yes, so then I spent some time selling on both of these marketplaces as well. And I think that, by selling over the course of a few years and watching buy box positioning and pricing and how all these different factors come into play in the algos of the actual marketplaces, I've been able to come up with some ideas as to what can get you placed into the buy box more of the time. And for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you know, but like buy box positioning is super important. With regards to obtaining sales, it's not that all of the sales come out of the buy box, but probably I think the statistic is 80+% of the sales come out of the buy box, and so very important to be in there more of the time. And so I've been able to pick up a few tricks on both of the marketplaces because they actually differ quite a bit.
Both. You can say the names.
Yeah, both. I didn't know we were allowed to talk about Amazon.
No, it's okay.
Yes.
Once in the podcast, we can say the name.
Okay, so I'll use it right now. Amazon Marketplace, repricing is just a little bit different than the Walmart Marketplace repricing. Not better or worse. Each have their own pros and cons with regards to what software is capable of and how fast we can do it, and and what the competition looks like and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we tend to focus on the Walmart side, over here, which is great. Because we actually specialize in that, and I'm staying hyper focused on that these days. It's really interesting to me as a marketplace, as the opportunity is rising, and as them going head to head with the other marketplace that we won't name again.
Michal, do you remember the first Prosper show?
The first. No, I was not.
When you were in your teens.
The one.
Yeah, me too. I was 27 when I spoke on that panel. I was very, very nervous. Almost
it was very unique.
This one.
And it was very unique. I think it was a turning point in shows. Everybody was used to going out to all these other shows that were coming up, and they did something differently. And this is all going to make sense in a second, but we were all doing certain things the exact same way based on pretty much a course that was out there. And then Prosper came around, had a whole new group of people like us, all these Walmart people that are, in need of learning and being educated. But it was really cool how they set up the panels. And I've met a ton of people. Joe Valley was one, Chad Rubin, James Thornton, Scott Needham. All these people were there at the time. And it was a completely different crowd, which exactly is what we're doing right here. It's a completely different crowd. Hopefully we're introducing people that some of the crowd has never heard of before. Even people we don't know exist that we're all of a sudden hearing about, which is kind of cool. But anyways, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and now it comes down to strategies. So we know some pricing and some repricing strategies over on the other guy. What about you and talking about some common strategies in and with ecom repricing?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know what level all of the listeners are here today, but I'll talk about it at like a basic to mid level, just because like it seems on most of the demos that I'm doing, for Walmart repricing, at least, and even you'd be surprised because like I don't get to speak to every client that comes on board with Flashpricer. But I do get to speak to a large majority of them, at least now in our starting phases, and their knowledge of repricing and what it takes to set up like strategies is sometimes like pretty novice, right? So at the most basic level, if you're selling products in both of the fulfillment methods that are allowed on the channel, right? So like if you're doing both merchant fulfilled and WFS for Walmart or virtual fulfilled and FBA for Amazon, at minimum, you're going to want two different strategies. One that will be assigned to your merchant fulfilled listings, and one that will be assigned to your channel fulfilled listings, FBA, WFS. And the reason for that is because what it takes in order to get the buy box when you're each of those fulfillment methods gets taken into consideration very heavily. That's one of the largest factors of whether or not you're obtaining the buy box and at what price you can get it at. Like testing the upper boundaries is which fulfillment method you're using to get your products to your customer, right? So it's not only just how fast you're getting it to them, because even if you're able to get it to your customer in 2 to 3 days, merchant fulfilled, you'll still have a competitive advantage by sending products into WFS or FBA. Are you guys hearing me okay? I just lost it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Cool. Great. So at minimum, you're going to want two strategies. And those strategies are basically going to define how you're competing against the competition. On your WFS strategies, in order to obtain a buy box, you are going to have to determine how to compete with who's in the buy box at that moment in time. And when you're competing against a merchant fulfilled seller, you might not have to be as aggressive as if you're competing against another WFS seller. Also, you're going to want to take into consideration whether or not you have your own, like a pro seller badge, if you're eligible for the buy box, and a few other factors. And basically, based on those things, you can say, okay, when I'm WFS, I want to compete against merchant fulfilled sellers, but I don't actually have to beat them into the buy box and drive prices down all the time, by going below their price. I'm WFS, based on like a specific percentage margin, you can actually price your items just above the next closest merchant fulfilled seller and still obtain buy box a nice percentage of the time. We do a pretty good job of allowing you to like analyze this data. So if you don't get it right on the first try into the buy box, you'll be able to filter down those listings, see where you aren't getting the buy box, and get more aggressive on your strategies. Basically, create a separate strategy, duplicate it, and then assign those listings to a more aggressive strategy in order to get the buy box from those merchant fulfilled sellers. We also allow you to compete differently when you're seeing Walmart in the buy box or Amazon in the buy box or other WFS sellers in the buy box. So basically, at minimum, in terms of strategy, you're going to want to take into consideration most heavily what fulfillment method you're using in order to get the product to the customer. Conversely, when you're shipping stuff merchant fulfilled, you're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive into the buy box while competing against other WFS sellers. Depending on whether or not you have a pro seller badge, you might still need to be pretty competitive with other merchant fulfilled sellers, and certainly when you're competing against Walmart in the buy box, the most aggressive. So it's at minimum those two factors, right? Two strategies, just to get started before getting more granular. And I encourage clients to continue to get more and more granular, right? Like start with one strategy and continue to get more granular on it. You start it, you analyze it, you create filters, you duplicate the strategy, you assign those into the new strategy, you then analyze that new strategy, see what's working, what's not working, duplicate, and keep moving forward. Not so unlike how somebody would do like advertising or PPC analysis and stuff like that for a private label or anything else, right? Like once you start dealing with many listings, it's hard to look at each and every one minute by minute or even hour by hour. And of course we have to sleep at some point or another. And so these automations really help, these automated pieces of software really help you stay ahead of competitors. And the analysis of the strategies is just something that needs to occur every so often in order to keep yourself sharp, right? The people who analyze these things more, most frequently, obviously, daily is probably not a good enough test, but at least, like weekly or every few weeks, make adjustments slightly to just get 1% better, 1% better, 1% better. Those are the sellers that I'm seeing are really competing the right way, selling at the highest potential possible while making as many sales as possible.
You able to sleep?
Me? No, I don't sleep. I build the software that helps you guys sleep.
You need to stay up at night and reprice.
Yeah, exactly. This is what happens. You guys send your millions of listings into my software, and me and a team, an army of VAs actually pretend to be software, and we make the changes in real time based on what we're seeing in your strategy settings.
Yeah, you said something very interesting about the fact that sometimes Walmart is selling too or in the buy box. So I'm just curious, is there a strategy to get the buy box from Walmart?
Yeah, you gotta beat them by more than anybody else you're competing with. Basically, it's like the same thing as Amazon, and like Amazon will beat you right down to like, you can't really do it. Like Amazon will keep going. You'll eventually get the buy box from them if you have a good enough cost basis on the product. Walmart will also reprice against you, but again, you can obtain buy box over Walmart, especially if they're not delivering within like 2 days. Like sometimes they'll deliver like a little bit longer lead times and stuff like that. You could obtain buy box over them. You basically just have to create a larger spread in between yourself and Walmart. I'd say it's a good enough strategy and tactic for both channels to like try to find listings that Amazon or Walmart are not currently on. You can't, of course, control whether or not they'll jump on your listing eventually. That's not a fun day, especially if you're holding a ton of inventory. But you could compete with them. You just have to have the best price.
Yeah. And I say to people all the time, like if you see something and there's no WFS seller, like go for it. It's like you definitely right. It's like the most chances to get the buy box is when you WFS and nobody else, right?
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, like I think Yes, definitely, yes, and definitely at higher prices than all the other merchant fulfilled sellers that are on there.
How high? Do you know? Do you have percentage
Above,
or above
you
if
could,
someone is affiliate best?
yeah. So like, I've seen as much as like two to $3 on like items that are like in the like $25 to $75 range. $2 to $3 above, you could be just as
You
fine.
can.
Yeah. Um, but again, it needs to be tested, right? So like it'd be good if you had like a system that is testing those upper boundaries. We do a bit of algorithmic repricing once we obtain buy box to test upper limits
Yeah.
on each individual listing, and those upper limits matter per the listing, per the price, and obviously like per who your competition is. So you need to test it. And like the good thing about Walmart, like on Amazon, in order to test, it's usually like between, so even though we could push pricing to Amazon and Walmart like in seconds, we push it, right? The marketplace still has to absorb that information via the API call and then make it live on the website. On Amazon, if you're trying to test upper boundaries and stuff like that and get the information back from them, it's taking quite a bit of time. So like, even though I instantly send pricing back to them, like competition changes, we do the calculation, recompute, and send it back. That happens in a matter of a second or two. On Amazon, it might take like between 3 minutes and 15 minutes to see your new price up on Amazon. And you'll then see, oh, did I lose the buy box at that price? Do I still maintain it at that price, etc. And you'd have to continue doing that. Like that'll consume a majority of the hour to figure out at what price you could be in the buy box at. We can actually do that. Like one of the competitive advantages that I'm seeing on Walmart is that we can do that in like sub 1 minute. We can send it could be received and it could be up and live. Like sometimes even like a few seconds, like between 5 and 10 seconds. We can, recalculate, calculate, and push. No, usually. If you're unpublished, sometimes takes a little bit longer to go live, from an unpublished status. But if we're just competing and we're all around buy box levels and stuff like that, I can test upper boundaries on these on these listings like pretty quickly. Like we get like 4 or 5 different price changes in like 15 or 20 minutes. Just to test to see where we're at.
I got a question about pricing. So I know that you two have been just going back and forth about lowest price. I don't want lowest price. Okay, so like let's say that I have a product and it could be I don't know. It could be this coffee mug. Okay. So there's a something on Walmart that's selling this coffee mug for $29. All right. But I have a much better coffee mug. It's a much higher quality. It's a much higher perceived value. The listing is perfectly optimized. And I want to go out at $49. And we see this all the time. We have a knife that's just, especially on the other platform, that's just directly from a Chinese manufacturer. And they can afford to give the lowest price for their product. But you take their product, you package it up, you make it beautiful, you spend the money on the photos and everything else. Does that mean that all that gets wiped out just because of price?
Yeah, no, definitely not. I think that's a really good point. It's also a completely different topic, I guess, right? Because like what you're talking about, I guess, would be like a private label product, a brand that you're trying to promote, right? On these sites, and your direct competition doesn't live on the same listing as you. So surely, yes, you can optimize the product with regards to quality and beauty and all the rest. And of course, you can charge a premium. It happens all the time with like brands that have done a good job of brand advertising, marketing, and actually having a great product. Same pair, similar pair of pants looking at Zara is not going to be the same price as you might find it at Lululemon or something like that, right? That's just like a factor of like brand and recognition and actually maybe even quality, right? What we're speaking about specifically is when we have competition on the same listing and how to compete against them based on like different performing channels, your current selling price, how many handling days you have, how many reviews you have, pro seller badges, and all the rest. All those factors still come into consideration when you're the only seller on the listing. And presumably you can optimize the price of your own coffee mug over another one that's out there based on what you're spending on ads, and maybe just price and the way your item looks on the site. And we are going to help private label sellers tackle that equation in a few months' time. For now, we're like hyper focused on competitors who are selling already branded products, who are reselling these products on behalf of these brands and competing, on price, how fast they can get it to you, and a brand that's already recognizable to you. And just to speak to your point, you still might not want to be the lowest seller on the listing. And so we do have optimizations built into the software for what happens when you obtain the buy box, and we were just talking about that, and how we can help optimize upwards in the other direction. So like the second you obtain buy box, we stop any downward movement. Doesn't matter what your strategy initially says in order to get you there. We start testing upper boundaries until we can maintain buy box at the highest price possible and for the longest amount of time possible. And that's a strategy setting. I mean, not everybody wants to do that. Some people want to liquidate. That might not be a strategy setting for somebody who wants to liquidate, or somebody who's willing to accept, a 3% margin on their product as compared to somebody who wants to maintain 25%. It's a replenishable type thing. Then they might just want to blow through it, right? And so it's important to set up different strategies for those different things. You don't know the strategy of your competing sellers, but you can take into consideration all the factors that you have in front of you, all the information that you have in front of you that helps you be most eligible for the buy box, and within your minimum and maximum selling threshold, and of course your strategy for whether or not you want to blow through inventory, maintain the highest level of margins, etc. You can set up different strategies for different items, even granular down to the one product can have one strategy for it.
Yeah, that is. I have so many more questions, but we're gonna try to stick with the. We do have a couple of important questions for you. Norm, you wanna take the next question?
Well, I think the next question is a sponsorship question.
Oh,
We should run a sponsor. And by the way, if you do have questions, I know we have a few here, but if you have comments, questions, don't be afraid to throw them into the comment section. We'll be getting to them towards the end of the podcast. But usually they all come in at the end. So just to ensure that you get them, get it answered, please make sure you put it in as soon as possible. And now, Kelsey, if you're doing your job, put your finger on the button and press it. Are you struggling with your Walmart marketplace business? Do you need help from a skilled and reliable virtual assistant? Well, look no further than Virtual Assistant Academy, or VAA Philippines. VAA specializes in locating, screening, training, and supporting high-quality Walmart VAs in the Philippines. Their VAs receive extensive Walmart training and ongoing professional development and are committed to long-term working relationships with you. Partner with VAA and experience the peace of mind knowing that you have a dedicated Walmart-trained VA who's up to date with the latest tools and trends in the dynamic Walmart marketplace. Head over to VAAphilippines.com and let VAA match you with your ideal VA today. All right. So I guess the question that I'm thinking of, and we kind of touched on this, but the importance of how you can react to price movements like in real time, and what are some of the consequences? And I think I know what you're going to say, but if you don't do it.
Yeah. So like, I mean, it's not uncommon for me to, hear sellers be like, hey, I have my virtual assistants. Hey, speaking of virtual assistants, my virtual assistants do my repricing for me, right? So like just the most common type of things that we hear, we'll hear, right? So like that, I used to hear that a lot. I'm hearing that a little bit less. People are have sort of come around to the idea that they like need some sort of repricer. They may not know exactly which one they need yet, but something like that, right? So like if you're not repriced, if you have 10 or more products, you can't possibly do the repricing or watch these products all day. If one of your competitors on each of those listings has a repricer in place, they're going to beat you into the buy box all day. Some repricers and pricing monitoring softwares on the market. Let's talk about the repricers that are built into the marketplace themselves. So those are like super limited, first of all. They don't have a lot of bells and whistles. They're just like pretty standard type stuff. And mostly both of them don't have any opportunity to increase your prices, even when your strategy would say to do so, right? So like they only are meant to degrade prices, always just match or beat your competition at any given point in time. There's no settings to actually get them to raise their pricing. Also, what I really don't like about those, I'm sorry to like talk so frankly and bluntly, is you still have to put a minimum and maximum selling threshold into those platforms, as well as into any of your repricers. And like these are potentially your competitors on your listings, right? So like if you're repricing using their repricer and they know your minimum selling threshold, what makes you believe that they won't just reprice their item just below that and know they've got you under control at least? So I don't really like that. I mean, we've seen like Amazon's up against like some stuff with regards to like private label products and like, ripping those off and just creating their own listings on like, based on like great data that they have. Yeah, I find it hard to believe that like, you want to kind of trust your competition with regards to that, besides for the fact that those, those systems aren't really that great and they're not optimizing upwards ever. And, they're kind of slow. Some other repricers restrict you per the number of events per minute, and ingesting information from the platform, and how quickly they're going to absorb that information and how quickly they're going to send information back out to the marketplace. Sometimes I hear from people, okay, well, I don't need instant repricing. I don't need to react in real time and stuff like that. They're like, it's good enough if I do it once an hour. And so my response to that is that makes not so much sense. Like once an hour, you might as well just not do it at all, right? What does once an hour mean? Once an hour means that that we're basically going to be so like top of the hour, you're repricing against a competitor that has $20 is a price of $20. You reprice to $20. You reprice to $20. They have a strategy in place that beats you by 1 penny. They get the buy box, right? 3 minutes later or 2 minutes later, they have the buy box for 58 minutes. You reprice against them. You have the buy box for 1 or 2 minutes, and then they get the buy box for the remaining 58 minutes of the hour. And that goes on all day. So the downside of not having a system that reacts in real time, is able to absorb the information and gets the right information is detrimental, to say the least, right? Like if you can't compete, even if it's by 1 or 2 pennies, I'm sure people are willing to sacrifice that over the course of a day or, hours where people are buying, and instead of getting 10, 20, 30 sales on a product per day, you're ending up with like 4 or 5. That's a big problem for you. You'd rather sacrifice a few pennies, or maybe even don't have to, but you need to be moving faster than they are in order to obtain the positioning at the highest price possible. So yeah, more downside about not using this competitive repricing and not moving in as fast as real time as possible is that you're just going to be missing out on possible buy box time, right? And the best way to sell is to have the most buy boxes at any given time. Whether the product sells or not, that can't always be determined by you. But if you're on a product that's selling, if you're not in the buy box, you're not going to be selling the product. So very, very, very important. Like pricing is one of the most important factors out of all the factors that come into play with regards to buy box positioning. And of course, buy box positioning is the most important factor in whether or not you're going to make sales. So pricing, how fast you can get in there, how fast you can be reactive to competitors who have other repricing systems enabled, or if they don't, even better. And if theirs don't react in real time, even better. So it's a bit of a game on that front. You want to take into consideration, you really want to be buying for like having a pro seller badge when you realize opportunities that are going well, that you're selling merchant fulfilled. And like Michal said, there aren't many WFS sellers. You can take into consideration that probably your shipping cost out to the client is going to be equal to or even more than the fulfillment fee from Walmart. So basically that's like a complete wash, but you could probably obtain buy boxes and sell it at, between $1 and $3 more than you're selling at today. So, so if you're selling a product quite frequently merchant fulfilled, just assume it's not going to cost you more to get to the client faster, but you'll be able to sell it at a higher selling price and assign it to a different strategy that will compete differently against all these other sellers on the listing now. You're going to want to buy for pro seller badge to overlay into your pricing, right? Because that will also give you priority into the buy box. If you're merchant fulfilled, you're going to want to get the products there as fast as possible. But I have noticed that on Walmart specifically, like a couple of days difference in terms of merchant fulfilled sellers won't make a difference, won't make much of a difference at all. It really comes down to like your price and pro selling badge. And then like if you could get those two things the right way, in addition to like sending into WFS, it's like the trifecta. So those would be the things that I would be looking at is like just to circle back to like the beginning of it, like what do you risk by not reacting in real time and not moving fast enough? You're risking a lot of sales. You're risking a lot of time outside of the buy box. And by not having the buy box, obviously, back to square one, you're not going to have such a good time selling.
Yeah, you're right. Let's talk about your tool, so Flashpricer. So what's the most competitive advantage of seller using a Flashpricer? If you can give me an example.
Yeah, so what we were saying was like a few things, right? So like the main factors were reacting quickly, being able to obtain buy box and push out prices to the channels really quickly, right? So we're able to do all of those sorts of things, right? So that's just to start. We don't have any restrictions on like how fast or how often we reprice. We do that when we need to. And what does that mean? So Walmart, we'll speak to Walmart specifically. Walmart basically sends and receives information from us. We send information in an API. For those of you who know what that is, great. It's just a way for us to interface with Walmart.com, not by going into your seller center, but we can do almost all the factors, all the functionality that you can within Seller Center yourself, just from the back end of things. So we're sending information to them. That happens quite instantly. And like I said, we could get price changes into the marketplace within a matter of a few seconds, usually. So the biggest issue that we see here, right, and like Walmart has to send us information also, right? So we get that information in webhook notification, also in reports via the API. So that information comes when any offer changes on the listing, meaning a new seller has come onto the listing, a seller has dropped off the listing, or the buy box owner has changed. And that's basically all the information that those notifications send you. Now, a not so fun fact about that is that we've noticed that about 40% of that information that they are sending to us is just incorrect, like flat out wrong. Like buy box price is $25.39. No, wrong. When we double check that information, it's $22. So if you're competing against the information, the buy box information that you're receiving from Walmart.com, which most of the repricers out there are doing, then you're going to be repricing against the wrong competitor 40% of the time. And so if you're competing against the wrong competitor 40% of the time, then you will not be in the buy box at least 40% of the time, right? That doesn't factor for the times where you do get the correct information and you still can't get the buy box, right? So that's in addition to that. So you don't even have a fair chance of getting the buy box when you don't know who the buy box owner is, what fulfillment method they are, what price they're at. And you definitely can't set up strategies to take any of those things into consideration, optimize pricing, or beat people into the buy box. So that's 40% of the time, that information just flat out wrong. We've also noticed that another 20 to 30% of the time, when they're supposed to be sending us the information about somebody changing in the buy box or somebody coming on and off the listing, we don't actually even get that notification at all. And so that's another problem, right? No information, even wrong information, isn't coming through. And so you can't make educated price decisions based on that. And your pricing software can't make decisions based off of that. And so we've solved for all those issues. And we're able to actually get the real-time data off of the marketplace, continuously throughout the day, 24/7, effectively in real time. So whenever we get the notifications, we revalidate that information to make sure that all of the information is correct. We also know all of the sellers on the listing by name, their reviews, what fulfillment channels they're using, and whether or not they have a pro seller badge. You can use any of those factors in order to create your pricing strategies and compete against these individual sellers, even by name. The by name and the fulfillment methods and all the sellers on the listing, that information doesn't come to us from Walmart. So no other repricers can do that either. I mean, just those few things, aside from the fact that we have algorithmic based strategies, and we're trying to overlay, now we're trying to overlay AI. I know that's a hot topic now into our pricing decisions. Basically take into consideration all the sellers on a particular listing and figure out the exact price differential above or below that you need to be from that seller per specific listing in a given period of time in order to obtain the buy box for more of the time. And just know that flat out from second one, after the first time you obtain buy box from them, and continuously learn on each individual listing and optimize against them across other listings and stuff like that. We're just into some really cool stuff right now. But at the very ground level, I think what sets us apart is that we could do it fast, Flashpricer, lightning fast price changes, but mostly that we're based on correct information, all of the time. And so that's a big factor. I mean, on Amazon, it comes into consideration like a little bit less. Their APIs do a pretty good job of like sending you correct information, at least. But still, like they have their limitations. Like we said, the fact that we can't test upper boundaries as quickly, we can't optimize upwards as quickly, and make price changes as quickly on the Amazon side. So like I'd say the opportunity is really, is both, right? But where we really differentiate ourselves is on the Walmart side. And the ocean is blue, and it's the right time. Another fun fact is that the not so great API that is sending this information, I actually helped build that API with the Walmart team back in like 2016 or 17. So like Informed App Eagle was the first repricer on Walmart. But there wasn't much action over there. Like there were sellers still crushing it then, don't get me wrong, but nobody was talking about it. Like then maybe they were crushing it just because they were maybe the only seller on the
Yeah.
platform at all. Now, if you put your head into being on the platform now, the opportunity is huge. I still think this is ground level. I feel like we're 5 years behind Amazon. I know we're not supposed to say the name again. Amazon, with regards to the number of competition and like the red tape and like the IP complaints and like everything that you have to deal with on Amazon, like that you hate. It doesn't really exist. APS doesn't really exist on Walmart just yet. Whether it will is TBD. But for right now, like if you could get in now and sell, the sales are not so far behind. I'd say like the sales are probably like 1 to 2 years behind. Maybe because the competition isn't fully there yet, and because the sales exist and the competition isn't really there yet. I'd say that's the biggest opportunity. And like, we could help push. I don't know. I'm sure Norm and Michal can help you guys get. If you're not already selling on Walmart and are interested in it, we could help push your stores through to some internal contacts that we have over there. We can help you get started selling on the marketplace if you reached out to us directly, if that was something that was interesting to you. But I would say the opportunity is kind of now, whether or not you take us up on that opportunity to help you get there. The opportunity is now. Like if you've been thinking about it and you're absolutely crushing on Amazon, there's no reason why you couldn't do, add like, 40 to 80% back of what you're doing on Amazon on Walmart as well.
I agree. We don't hear you.
I'm on mute. Okay. Well, we got a couple of questions or comments. Kels, you want to read them out for us?
Yeah. So the first one is, can we use your software for Walmart Canada?
Oh, no, not just yet. But that's a very good question. And I've been hearing a little bit of demand there as well. Michal, can you talk to whether or not you're seeing like sales and demand on Canada?
I think with Canada, it's a good marketplace to be, but in Canada there is not the same quantity of people that is in the US. So if you expect a lot of sales, you might not gonna get a lot of sales, but it is a good marketplace, especially for a specific product. I did had a product in the fashion category a couple years ago that we sell in Walmart.com and in Canada, and actually in some point we started getting more sales on Canada for that specific product because there's more demand. And I guess they have issue to find this stuff in the store. I don't know why, but it was really cool. But it's a great marketplace, and definitely, I think for you should probably consider that.
Yeah, we do plan to support it. For right now, we're supporting Amazon US and Walmart US, but we certainly do plan to support multi-marketplace in the very near future. If you were to sign up for like a free trial or something, just shoot us an email. You'll be part of our lists. We send emails every time new functionality comes out, new marketplaces for sure. And we look forward to supporting that business. I think the opportunity is definitely there. I've heard it a few times, amongst people who we've brought on so far, clients that we brought on. I think, of course, if you're asking for it, then you're already probably selling there. And the demand is there, and you're just trying to keep up with the competition. So, we'll get there. The short and long answer is we'll get there, but we're not there yet. So please definitely reach out to us, subscribe to our, to our information, send us an email, success@flashpricer.com, or sign up for the free trial. We'll definitely get you some marketing content once it's live.
Okay, our next question is from Jewel. Jewel asking, would you recommend your product for a beginner who is selling only a couple of items on WFS? If you could please explain why or why not. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I recommend the product to anybody who has more than, I'd say, 5 listings. right? Because at one point or another, it doesn't make sense for you to be watching your pricing at all times. If you're asking this question, you probably already have, you already have competition on your listing. And so at minimum, you could set up your repricer to do what you would be doing, but also do it while you're sleeping. And at maximum, we'd be able to help you obtain and maintain buy box for longer periods of time and at higher prices. So yes, I would recommend it. With a very high level of certainty. First of all, we don't even have our billing system out just yet, so it's completely free for now. So you definitely should test the waters. After that, we'll have a 14-day free trial, and then I also plan on providing a coupon code to anybody who's attending this webinar. Probably Michal will send out an email to the list in the coming weeks. But yeah, even after that, prices is going to be very reasonable, especially on low listing count plans. And so I'm very confident I can make you way more than the $6 a day that it'll cost you to have, run our software. So yeah, the answer is yes, you should.
Okay. All right. We got a couple more questions. I think the next one should be pretty easy. What is the price of Flashpricer?
Yeah, so you could just visit flashpricer.com/pricing, I believe it is. The Walmart plans start at $199 per month. That's how I got to the $6 or in change a day. So fairly reasonable, I'd say, especially since nobody else can sort of do what we're doing. Yeah, and it goes up from there. It's on Walmart, it's most specifically tied to the number of listings, and on Amazon, it's virtually unlimited listings and more tied to the product functionality and what you're trying to achieve.
Quick question. So they get both. So for $199,
yeah, so on the $199 you'll
Walmart
get
and Amazon.
Yeah,
right?
Walmart and Amazon, exactly right. So then if you're doing that, it's a no-brainer because you're not going to find an Amazon repricer for $100, and you're not going to find a Walmart repricer for $100. So between the two, you have both. You have the best of both worlds. You can run 2 Walmart accounts on that starter plan, or 2 Amazon accounts on that starter plan. Where you start to have to upgrade is like 3 marketplaces or more than the 2,500 listings.
Okay, and our last question is from Murray. What happens if multiple sellers use Flashpricer for the same listings?
Yeah, that probably happens, and it's right. Like a lot. I've worked with some of the biggest repricers on the market. Servicing thousands of sellers at the same time, and I've built software for that have supported thousands of sellers at the same time. Not everybody's going to have the same strategies. Not everybody's going to be, is going to be as aggressive on each and every individual listing. Not everybody's going to have the same costs. So there's a lot of different factors that come into play with regards to repricing, right? And my rebuttal to that is, okay, so I'm not going to use I've heard this one before. I'm not going to use a repricer because somebody else is going to use a repricer, and they're going to beat me, and then I'm going to beat them, and then they're going to beat me, and I'm going to beat them. All right. So a lot of this game is the cost that you're getting your product at. It's a buy low and sell high type of game, right? And then you want to do it in volume, especially when you're on branded products and you have competition on your listings, which is a lot of sellers, right? Not everybody's doing private label. And so, my rebuttal is, okay, so you don't want to get into that war. You don't forget that you don't even know their repricing strategy, or if you're getting the product at a better cost price, maybe you could afford to sell lower, or maybe we can afford to raise your prices higher because you have a pro seller badge, you have great reviews, you have products in WFS to their MFN, right? There's so many different factors that come into play. And then if you're okay, just throw your hands up and be like, I'm not doing it because they're doing it, and they're whatever, okay, fine. So they'll just have the buy box, right? And you won't sell. So don't do it. It's kind of if you don't beat, if you can't beat them, join them type of thing, right? Like repricing is happening. I'd be surprised if like less than 50% of people are using repricers. I'd be shocked. Some sort of repricer. So I'd say it's like very, very important to be using one, even if your competitors are. Even more importantly, if your competitors are.
Okay, and our last question is from Marcia. Does your tool move prices up or only down?
Yeah, so we got over that a couple times. Probably the question was from a little bit earlier. Yeah, so we do both, either based on your specific strategy settings that you've set within the software, or based on our push-up algorithms. It's like called algo optimized buy box, and we'll test upper boundaries on the specific listing level to see the highest price that we can get you keep you in the buy box at, right? If that's what you want to do. If you're looking to move through inventory, you can set more aggressive strategies and not test upper boundaries. So it's pretty flexible. You basically need to tell it what you're trying to achieve.
All right. That was a lot of good information for all of you, mostly the resellers out there. And there is a lot. In the beginning, I remember when I started on Walmart, I used to resell, and there was no competition. I used to find so many items were out of stock. That was like so funny. Like the most, like if they're like the 100 top toys on the list, like there's a list of like half of it was out of stock. It was just, and nobody's there. I was like, and then I go to Amazon and the exact same Barbie is like 120 sellers, and on Walmart is out of stock. But today I think it's less gonna happen. But yeah, it was a good time a couple years ago. But still, Walmart is not as competitive. You're not gonna see. I never saw a listing with more than 100 sellers on it. Like, did you?
Me neither.
No, yeah, it's like maybe 10, 20 top.
I see many listings with 2 or 3 sellers. Many.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, if we don't have any more questions, Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today. Norm, thank you for showing up.
No problems.
And guys, if you like, please subscribe, share, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Next week we're gonna have a live Q&A. You guys can join us. It's more where you guys can ask questions, and we talk and give you some updates on what's new on Walmart. And in 2 weeks we will have another podcast. Norm?
Right. I think that's it. Thanks for joining today. And yeah, join us in our Q&A. It's always interesting. I always learn something during that as well. So looking forward to it. All right, Michal, I'll see you later.
Bye.